Welcome to the store. Don't forget to subscribe, and support me.
The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the village of Grey Hollow. The small cluster of homes nestled between rolling hills and the dense forest beyond was quiet, save for the occasional call of birds or the rustling of leaves in the wind. It was a peaceful place, far from the worries of the larger towns and cities that relied heavily on magic to power their way of life. Here, people lived simply, working the land and taking care of their families. Among them was Mary, a humble farmer, known more for her green thumb than for any magical talents. Mary wiped her brow, the warmth of the late afternoon sun still clinging to the air as she gazed at the patch of earth where she had spent the last few hours digging a new well. Her hands were calloused from years of hard work, and her plain clothes, stained with dirt, gave no hint of anything extraordinary about her. But as her shovel hit something hard beneath the soil, a jolt ran up her arm. Frowning, she knelt and brushed the earth away with her hands. Beneath the surface, a thick root wound its way through the ground. But this was no ordinary tree root. It pulsed faintly with a soft, green glow. "What in the world?" Mary muttered, her brow furrowing. She hesitated for a moment, then reached out and touched the root. The world around her vanished. Suddenly, she was standing in a vast expanse of light. The air shimmered with a kind of energy she had never felt before, ancient, powerful, and overwhelming. In the distance, she saw it, a massive tree that seemed to stretch into the heavens, its branches woven with stars, its roots deep beneath the earth, anchoring the very fabric of the world. "You have found me," a voice whispered, though it came from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was deep, resonant, like the voice of the earth itself. "I am the tree of life." Mary's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to understand what was happening. The tree of life? The stories she had heard as a child echoed in her mind, tales of the tree that sustained the world's magic, ensuring balance and harmony across the land. But that was just a legend, wasn't it? The voice continued, "I am fading. My roots grow weak. Magic falters. The world is unraveling." Mary felt a rush of emotions that weren't her own, fear, sorrow, and a deep, aching loss. And then, just as suddenly, the vision faded, and she was back in her field, kneeling beside the glowing root. Her breath came in shallow gasps. She had never experienced anything like that before. The connection she felt with the voice was undeniable, yet impossible to explain. Without knowing why, she pressed her palm against the root again, this time more gently. I don't understand," she whispered aloud. "How can I help you?" A warmth spread from the root, traveling up her arm and into her chest. The voice returned, though softer this time, as if it were fading. "There is a power within you, Mary. A bond. You are linked to the tree. You must restore its strength, or all will be lost." The warmth subsided, leaving her alone in the quiet of her field once more. But something had changed. The land around her, which had always felt alive with the subtle hum of magic, now seemed still. Unsettlingly so. The balance of the world's magic was indeed faltering, just as the tree had said. She knew she couldn't ignore this. Whatever had happened, whatever that vision had been, it was real. And if the tree of life was calling to her, she had no choice but to answer. That night, as Mary sat by the fire in her small cottage, she couldn't stop thinking about the vision. The weight of the tree's plea settled heavily on her shoulders. She had always been an ordinary farmer. The idea of saving the world seemed laughable, impossible, even. But the connection she felt with the tree spirit was undeniable, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this was something she had been meant to do all along. The following morning, she gathered what few supplies she had and set off for the village square. If she was to embark on a journey to save the tree, she would need help. Her first stop was the blacksmith's shop. Aaron, a tall, broad-shouldered man with hands as scarred and rough as the metal he worked, was hammering away at a sword when she entered. Aaron was a former knight, long retired after the wars that had ravaged the land years ago. Now, he made tools and weapons for the villagers, quietly living out the rest of his days in peace. "Aaron," she called over the clanging of metal. He glanced up from his work, wiping sweat from his brow as he approached her. "Mary," he greeted, his voice gruff but not unkind. "What brings you here?" "I need your help," she said, hesitating for a moment before continuing. "It's about the Tree of Life." Aaron's brow furrowed. "The Tree of Life? You mean the old legends?" Mary shook her head. "It's not a legend. It's real. And it's dying." She explained everything, what she had seen, what the tree spirit had told her, and the urgency of the situation. Aaron listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he stood still for a long moment, staring out the window of his shop as if contemplating the weight of her words. Finally, he nodded. "If what you say is true, then we're all in danger. I'll come with you." With Aaron by her side, Mary felt a sense of relief, but they still needed more help. Next, they sought out Lyra, a young sorceress who lived on the outskirts of the village. Lyra was known for her knowledge of ancient magic, though she kept to herself and was often viewed with suspicion by the more traditional villagers. They found her in a small, cluttered cottage filled with books and strange artifacts. Lyra's piercing green eyes studied Mary as she recounted her story. "The Tree of Life is dying," she repeated, her voice soft but serious. "If that's true, then we're on the edge of catastrophe." "I don't know much about magic," Mary admitted, "but I know we can't do this alone. Will you help us?" Lyra's gaze flickered between Mary and Aaron, and then she nodded slowly. "If the tree is calling to you, then it must be serious. I'll come." Their group was almost complete, but there was one more person Mary knew they would need: Zeke, an inventor and tinkerer who had spent his life blending magic and technology in ways that baffled most people. Though he was eccentric and unpredictable, there was no denying his genius. They found Zeke in his workshop, surrounded by strange, half-finished devices that buzzed and whirred with faint traces of magic. When Mary explained the situation, he grinned, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "The Tree of Life, huh? I always knew there was something more to those old stories," he said, rubbing his hands together. "Count me in. This sounds like the adventure of a lifetime." And so, with their team assembled, Mary, Aaron, Lyra, and Zeke set out on their journey to the Tree of Life. They traveled through forests and over hills, the land growing more wild and untamed the closer they got to the heart of the magic. The farther they ventured, the more they realized just how dire the situation had become. The sky was often clouded with strange, swirling patterns, and the air itself seemed to hum with unstable energy. As they neared the tree, the ground began to shift beneath their feet, roots rising from the earth like twisted, gnarled fingers. The Tree of Life loomed ahead, its massive branches stretching toward the sky, but something was wrong. The once vibrant glow of magic that had always surrounded it was dim, and the roots, once strong and full of life, were withering. "It's worse than I thought," Lyra murmured, her voice filled with dread. Aaron tightened his grip on the sword at his side. "We'll fix it. We have to." But as they approached the tree's inner sanctum, they were met with resistance. The very ground seemed to pulse with dark energy, and before they could reach the core, a shadowy figure emerged from the twisted roots, a guardian spirit, once tasked with protecting the tree, now corrupted by the decay. The spirit's eyes burned with a malevolent light as it raised its hand, sending a wave of dark magic crashing toward them. Aaron stepped forward, raising his sword to deflect the attack, while Lyra chanted an incantation to shield them from the worst of the blast. "We don't want to fight you," Mary called out, her heart pounding in her chest. "We're here to help the tree." The spirit didn't respond, its form flickering as it prepared another attack. But then Mary felt a familiar warmth spreading through her, and the voice of the tree spirit whispered in her mind. "It is lost. Corrupted. You must restore balance." Mary's pulse raced as the corrupted guardian spirit hovered before them, flickering like a shadow torn between light and darkness. Aaron stood firm, sword raised, while Lyra's magic crackled in the air, barely holding back the growing tide of dark energy. Zeke fumbled with one of his gadgets, his brow furrowed in concentration. But it was Mary who knew the solution. The tree spirit's voice echoed in her mind, urging her to act. Without thinking, Mary stepped forward, her hand outstretched, her palm glowing faintly with the warmth of the tree's remaining magic. "Please," she called, her voice trembling but resolute. "I know you're in pain. But we're not your enemies. We're here to restore the tree, to bring it back to life." For a moment, the guardian hesitated, its form wavering. The malevolent glow in its eyes dimmed, replaced by a flicker of something softer, something familiar. Mary felt a surge of hope. She reached out further, her heart pounding in her chest. If she could just reach it, break through the corruption, maybe, just maybe, they could avoid a fight they weren't ready for. But then the dark energy flared again, more violently than before. The guardian let out a screeching wail, the force of it making the ground tremble. Aaron was thrown back, his sword flying from his grasp, while Lyra's shield shattered into sparks. Zeke barely managed to dive out of the way, clutching his half-finished invention to his chest. Only Mary stood her ground, the warmth of the tree spirit anchoring her to the earth. "You can't fight it with force," the tree spirit whispered inside her mind. "You must heal it." Mary closed her eyes, feeling the pull of the tree's energy deep within her. She breathed deeply, focusing all her thoughts on the guardian, on its pain, its confusion. Slowly, she let the tree's magic flow through her, reaching out with her mind, with her heart. She imagined the guardian not as an enemy, but as a lost part of the tree itself, a piece that needed to be brought back into the fold. "I won't let you fall," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The energy shifted. The dark tendrils of magic began to retreat, curling away like smoke caught in a breeze. The guardian's form flickered once more, and this time, it grew solid, whole. The malevolent light in its eyes faded completely, replaced by a soft, golden glow. It let out a low, mournful sound, like a creature awakening from a long nightmare. Mary opened her eyes just in time to see the guardian bow its head, its form shimmering as it faded into the earth, becoming one with the roots of the tree again. The corruption was gone. Aaron groaned as he pushed himself up from the ground, rubbing the back of his head. "Well, that wasn't how I thought this would go." Lyra, still breathless from the effort of holding the shield, gave Mary a small, exhausted smile. "You did it." Zeke, still fiddling with his device, muttered, "Could have used a bit more warning next time," but Mary barely heard them. Her focus was on the tree, its roots still withered, its magic still fading, though now the path to its core lay open. The guardian had returned to its place, but the tree's heart was still in danger. Whatever was draining its power remained deep within. "We have to keep moving," she said, her voice more resolute than she felt. "This isn't over yet." The others nodded, gathering themselves as they prepared to press forward. Together, they entered the hollow at the base of the Tree of Life, the air growing heavier with each step. The inside of the tree was vast, the walls glowing faintly with ancient runes, pulsing weakly with the remnants of magic. But ahead, deep in the heart of the tree, they could see the life crystal. The crystal, once said to be the source of all magic in the world, was dim, its light barely more than a flicker. And wrapped around it, like a serpent coiling around its prey, was a dark, shadowy force, an entity that seemed to drain the crystal's very essence, feeding off its life force. "There it is," Zeke whispered, his voice awed and horrified at the same time. The shadow entity stirred as they approached, its form shifting and twisting like smoke caught in a windstorm. Its eyes, if they could be called eyes, glowed with a cold, predatory light as it regarded them. "It's draining the tree," Lyra said, her voice tight with fear. "That's what's been weakening the magic." Aaron drew his sword again, though his grip was tighter this time. "So how do we stop it?" Mary stepped forward, feeling the tree spirit's presence guiding her once more. "We have to restore balance. This entity, it's a creation of imbalance. The world's reliance on magic without understanding its limits. It's born from the same imbalance that's killing the tree. So we destroy it," Aaron said, his voice hard. "No," Mary said, shaking her head. "We can't just destroy it. We need to bring balance. That's the only way to save the tree." Zeke's eyes lit up. "Wait. Balance, magic and technology working together. That's what we've been missing." He knelt down, pulling a small, metallic device from his bag. "I've been working on something. It's not finished yet, but if we can harness both magic and tech, we might be able to overload the shadow entity, disrupt its connection to the crystal." Lyra crouched beside him, her hands glowing with magic as she infused the device with her power. "I can amplify it with a spell, but it'll only work if we hit it at the right moment. Too early or too late, and it could backfire." "Then we do it together," Mary said, her voice calm and steady. "We'll time it perfectly." The shadow entity began to stir more violently, sensing the threat. Aaron stood ready, his sword gleaming with a faint trace of magic from the runes inscribed along its blade. Mary felt the tree spirit's presence more strongly than ever, guiding her every move. "On my mark," Zeke whispered, his fingers hovering over the device's controls. The shadow lunged at them, its form expanding, dark tendrils reaching out to strike. Aaron swung his sword, deflecting the attack as Lyra cast a shield to protect them. Zeke's hands flew over the controls, the device humming to life, while Mary stepped forward, her connection to the tree stronger than ever. "Now," she shouted, her voice ringing out. Zeke activated the device, and Lyra poured her magic into it. A bright, blinding light erupted from the small contraption, blasting toward the shadow entity. The creature shrieked, recoiling as the light enveloped it, the dark tendrils dissolving in the air. The balance between magic and technology surged through the hollow, striking the life crystal at its core. The shadow fought back, its form writhing as it tried to cling to the crystal, but the balance was too strong. Piece by piece, the entity disintegrated, vanishing into nothingness, and then there was silence. The life crystal pulsed once, then twice, its light growing brighter with each beat. The magic that had been fading for so long began to flow again, surging through the roots of the tree, restoring the balance that had been lost. Mary felt a rush of warmth and peace wash over her as the tree of life regained its strength. The world was safe. For now, she turned to her companions, all of them breathless and worn but smiling. "We did it," she said softly, the weight of the moment settling in, but even as the tree's magic returned, Mary knew that this was only the beginning. The balance had been restored, but it would be up to her, and others like her, to ensure that the world didn't fall into chaos again. The tree of life would live on, and with it, so would the hope for a future where magic and technology could exist in harmony.